welcome to the Queer Witch Project, your resource for all things queer and witchy. I am Moonkittee, a queer femme poly kitchen witch and a proud geek.
And I am Jeyn Jaffe. I am subbing in this week for the incomparable Demona Peacock, who unfortunately cannot be with us this week. I am a druidic bard with a penchant for mischief, mayhem, and what I like to call mystical tomfoolery.
Today's topic is queer being raised by a pagan parent with our special guest, Rosemary Hawthorne. Hello.
Hi, I'm Rosemary Hawthorne because you can refer to me as Rosemary Hawthorne because I have some opinions that might make people a little mad, everything like that. But my pronouns are she, her, and I am a certified bisexual bitch. I have been a practicing pagan since I was 14, and I'm specializing in death magic and shadowcraft, which is, so nobody starts lighting the torches and everything like that, is literally just working with the constant change and transformation of the natural world, and that includes death. I'm not pulling a light Yagami on anyone yet. And also working with the darker parts of nature for a more abstract approach.
So, yes, Rosemary, welcome, and thank you for joining us today. You are, of course, the lovely offspring of our wonderful Jeyn Jaffe. And
Here's to hoping.
as far as I was told, anyway.
Yeah.
As far as the world knows, yes.
We'll keep it that way.
She showed up on the front porch. I don't know who she is. She was there in a basket. I said, why not? You know?
But either way, we wanted to say thank you and welcome. Demona and I am Gen X, Demona is millennial, and there is so many different generations. And we have this idea of wanting to see how different people react. And growing up queer and being raised by a pagan parent, you have a really unique perspective of what's happening in your generation that may not be accessible to a lot of other people, and we wanted to be able to share that. So I really appreciate and thank you for joining us on this topic.
Of course.
And I know your mother is, like I said, a mystical bard and tomfoolery, also masquerading as a dirty old man.
Fair.
So
shade.
The shade. I know. I should not be hazing you the minute you are so gracious as to volunteer for jumping in on this. But I wanted to just share with our guests, we've known each other a long time, and I'm really excited to have you here too, Jeyn. So with that, let's go ahead and dive in. And the first question I always ask, and that we ask this again of all of our guests, is what does the term queer witch mean to you? It's not do I necessarily do identify, but what does it mean to you when you hear that phrase?
Honestly, just someone who is a magical practitioner and who loves outside of their opposite gender that they were assigned or whatever the hell, and or identifies as something beyond their assigned sex at birth. That's literally all it is, at least to me.
Nothing wrong with that. And that's what I find so fascinating about this question is everyone has their own interpretation of it. And I think that's some of the joy and the fun of being queer is knowing that you have the ability to dance around the boundaries of some of the definitions that are out there. With that idea, how has being a part of Gen Z allowed for you to express yourself differently than maybe my generation, your mom's generation, or even Demona's generation?
I'd say the fact that since we grew up with technology and we were able to learn a lot more about the world thanks to the internet, we were allowed to basically break down a lot of the mindsets that past generations had before us and how they were and how they essentially constricted their worldviews a lot and like how the world works and stuff. And we were able to like break down what that was and everything like that and break down those mindsets and essentially realize that we don't want to do that because a lot of that stuff that they had, those mindsets that they had and like those worldviews and stuff, they were honestly kind of pretty stupid. So we just decided, we heard the phrase take no harm but do no shit and took it to heart. That's pretty much it. Because yeah.
Are there ways visually you've been able to express yourself? Has that ability to be more flexible and choose what you want to do affected the way you express yourself?
Well, for starters, I'm going to say this. Fashion always recycles itself,
Hmm.
like, in some way,
Absolutely.
shape, or form, like, over the centuries and everything like that. I want to say, me personally and everything like that, I'm
Hmm.
not gonna speak for my entire generation because, that's just not, no.
Hmm.
But for me, at least, I've definitely taken inspiration from a lot of, like, what some past generations have. The goth movement, I'm obsessed with that. The whimsy goth movement of like early to late 80s to early to mid 90s and everything like that, essentially walking out of a pyramid collection
Hmm.
catalog and the films Practical Magic and The Craft and Witches of Eastwick. Holy shit. But yeah, I that's something that I personally just like really enjoy, just like aesthetically and everything like that,
Hmm.
because how things have evolved because the internet exists now and we have like a lot more opportunities to like learn about stuff.
Let me ask a question that's out there because this is the thing we get constantly. Does being exposed to gay culture at an early age make you gay? This is such a big hot topic from the boomer generation and all this. Oh my God, if you got queerness in school and you're learning about this kind of stuff, it'll make you gay. Does it?
Nobody makes me do anything. I earned my right to no, in all seriousness, you
Hmm.
hear that as a lot of propaganda to prevent gay people from raising and having kids.
Hmm.
But the reality of the fact is what you are and aren't exposed to growing up just brings out what's already there. But no, being raised gay did not make me gay. It just brought out what was already there. That's why a lot of these straight couples don't raise their kids gay, continue to have, gay kids. Because that's just what happens.
Well, no, I see what you're saying. It's like reading a book about the hungry, hungry caterpillar doesn't make you a hungry, hungry caterpillar.
Yeah, and
Hmm.
if it does turn you into one, it brings out what's already there. Like,
Hmm.
that's the fact, Jack.
Like I could be a hungry, hungry caterpillar, read a book about being a hungry, hungry caterpillar, and go, "Oh, that's it. That's what I've been this entire time. I've been a hungry, hungry caterpillar." But that doesn't. Reading the book didn't make me the
Hmm.
caterpillar or the hungry caterpillar. It might have pointed me in a direction. It might have given me language for
Hmm.
something that I already knew was there. And I think that's the delightful thing about what I'm seeing with this generation play on the language. This play on they're coming up with these new phrases and new words and running with it and making it theirs. And I'm so excited to be able to witness that.
Hmm.
So
That's awesome.
yeah, it's what is ever, the whole nature versus nurture argument. It's not I read a hungry, hungry caterpillar. I am not a hungry, hungry caterpillar. Just saying.
Now that you actually talked about that nature versus nurture bullshit, I have no clue why that has any merit because nature and nurture are the same thing. Depending on what animal you are, you nurture your young and help them develop. An example I could use and everything like that is apes and snakes. Snakes, they lay their eggs, keep them warm, and then when they're born, you can go do your own. And I'm gonna go into oblivion there because humans are the way we are. We are supposed to nurture our young and help them grow into actual human beings and then send them off into the world. You're supposed to be a parent, is what I'm trying to say, I guess.
Speaking of mothers and parenting, what did you learn from your pagan mom, from your pagan aunties, all of those things? What did you learn from those pagan figures that were in your life that had such a developing impact on you as you were growing up?
Honestly, that do no harm but take no shit message that I talked about before, because two key things that I learned growing up surrounded by all the people that I was taught, the lessons that I was taught is be yourself, be your own person because you have every right to live your life how you choose to and be who you choose to be. And to have community to fall back on and support. Side rant. But no
Hmm.
matter how many Lone Star cowboy movies you watch about, roaming the Wild West as a lone crusader, that lone crusader bullshit in and of itself has absolutely zero merit because whether you like it or not, like you can have your own personal social preferences, but humans need community to fall back because genuinely we are social creatures and we need like human connections and emotional bonds because that is literally just how we're wired. That was one of the other key things that I was taught growing up is to have community to both fall back on and support both yourself and them because life is always going to be hard to handle and there are things that are going to happen that will monumentally suck ass and having people in your corner to come back to makes it so much easier.
Hmm. No, I agree. Community is one of the things that we talk about a lot as finding your own community, whether that's a queer community, whether that's a pagan community, whether it's a combination of both, is incredibly important to your growth, whether you are taking a solitary path, which is different than a lone wolf path, I will have you
Yeah,
know.
Absolutely.
How did you get to this point of identifying yourself as a queer witch?
Well, it wasn't easy.
Okay, fair
Um,
enough. Never is.
yeah. In truth, in all honesty, it took a lot of self-reflection and recognition because before I figured out my craft, I was essentially being, I guess, conditioned into being Catholic by my father. And before I go any further, disclaimer, I do not hold anything against people of Christian faith. I just do not like it when you use your religion as an excuse to be both prejudiced against people and to
Mhm.
use your religion as a shield to be a very shitty person. I was essentially being conditioned, I'm just gonna say, being Catholic by my dad. And while I was a part of that faith, I did not feel fulfilled by it, like at all, or felt any kind of calling to it. So for a while, I just decided, you know what? I'm just going to be atheist. I'm not going to have any opinion on this aspect, and I'm just going to remain neutral on the issue. But then in about August of 2019, I actually kind of realized that my mom's spiritual practice is what I liked being a part of, like the rituals and festivals and such. And then when I decided to set up my first altar, that's where it kind of stuck. Because
Mhm.
that's when I realized, like, this is how I want to be, and this is how I want to, like, live my life. And this is how, like, I want to, like, just be. I also like the joke being raised by a Catholic and a Druid helped me kind of like shape my morals because being raised Druid helped me essentially figure out how to deal with evil people, and
Mhm.
being raised Catholic helped me find evil people. So that's pretty much it.
No, I understand. I was also raised Catholic, and
Same.
the first was really funny. It's the first time I went to see a tarot reader. I mentioned that, and she's like, you know what? Catholics make the best pagans because
Fair.
we are conditioned from an early age to believe in a pantheon. You have the Trinity. You have all of the saints that you're praying to. Catholicism is steeped in ritual,
Yeah.
standing up, down, body of Christ, all of the things. So the things that we
Not
find as good pagans, as we take what we love from the Catholic Church, that ritual, the idea of
Incense.
multiple
candles,
people and
incense, all the shit.
candles, incense, all of that aspects, and we take it, we turn it, and we make it our own. So again,
Exactly.
every
And
time I hear that, it's just it makes my little heart flutter, and it makes me giggle.
all this stuff. I swear to God. And that is so true. The whole thing about communion, where you symbolically eat the body and drink the blood of your patron god that
Hmm.
you are like devoting yourself to, how is that not like a blood ritual?
Hmm.
How is that not like a binding ritual?
Transmutation.
Exactly. Building on the whole community, no matter how much germs they wipe away on the cup or whatever the hell, considering it is a communal cup and like, bread that you're eating, how is that also not a community binding ritual? Where you like,
Mhm.
how is that not like, a coven ritual or some kind? Like how is that how is that? How did that work? Make shit make sense, please.
It is. It's just framed through the lens of this is the ritual path to the one true God versus the ritual path to God does with the
Yeah.
multiple gods in the end. But anyway, I'm just watching Jen just sitting back here just laughing. For those of you who are obviously listening to this, you can't see this, but Jen is just sitting here laughing and snickering. So Jen, I'd love to get your thoughts on this one.
Also being raised Catholic, I have nothing personally, obviously,
Hmm.
against Christian faith or the Catholic faith or
Hmm.
any faith for that matter. I want to make
Right.
that explicitly clear, especially as I'm going into training as a chaplain
Hmm.
and I'm learning all about different faiths. And I've been learning all about different faiths, for many, many years now. Um, but having been raised Catholic and having that influence of the chanting, the incense, the candles,
The
the
singing.
Hmm.
the the standing up, all of that. It is, and I think you brought this up yourself, Shay. It's very steeped in ritual.
Hmm.
There's a protocol, if you will. There's a certain way and a certain time and everything. It's just structured. It is a very structured ritual space.
Hmm.
Period. And I think that could probably you can probably point that out to other faiths as well.
Hmm.
That other faiths, the idea of ritual is not purely pagan per
Hmm.
se. It's in part of all faiths. There's a structured way to do things whether you're talking about Catholicism, Judaism, Islam, Hindu, Buddhism, paganism. There's just a structured way in many faiths to do things. And Catholicism, very structured, having been raised, oh my gosh. Um, or I think I've heard it said or read it somewhere that scratch the surface of a Catholic and you're going to get a pagan,
Mm-hmm.
so it's a lot. I don't think that it's necessarily a coincidence that so many pagans that I have encountered in my years as a pagan were raised Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's a coincidence. Is the Catholic faith leading people into being pagans? No,
No.
absolutely not. That's just how it seems to evolve.
Goes
There
back
you
to
go.
the idea we said earlier that it just amplifies what you are already.
Yeah, yes, it does. It just amplifies what's already there in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of brings it to the surface.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes what it brings to the surface is another Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it brings to the surface something else, whether that's a pagan or something else that wants to be expressed with another faith. It just
Or
depends.
a Christian witch.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Yes,
that is a
that's
real
also.
thing. That
Hmm.
is very much a real thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And there are many different branches of paganism that deal with Christian gods. There's a lot of praying to different saints that are involved in the practice that are just as valid and just as real of a practice and faith base as everything else that we have. That all being said, if you could give a message to anyone in the boomer generation or even beyond, that greatest generation, there's not many of them left, but there's still a few. So for the boomers and the greatest gens, what would your message as a Gen Zer be to them?
Either get your shit together or keel over and die.
Ouch.
Okay, so I have a point to make. So before I go further, I know it is not every boomer that is a complete boomer or Gen Xer and everything
Mhm.
like that who is a complete grade A asshole who does not care what skin color you are or won't bat an eye over who you choose to. And to that I say, good for you. Keep up the good work, Frank Sinatra and Julie Andrews.
Okay, sorry. You
Whatever.
lost us completely on that reference.
Doesn't matter. Frank Sinatra is actually pretty good. Frank Sinatra is actually a pretty cool dude from what I've heard. Julie Andrews because Sound of Music. But in all seriousness, circling back to how the whole Gen Z thing, the internet stuff, once you break down like those mindsets, beliefs, and worldviews, it is so easy to like actually expand your worldview and like see how things like actually are. It is so easy to expand your worldview if you are willing to get a little uncomfortable about how the world actually is. And if you are still not doing that in 2024, if you have the resources to, then you are literally just being willingly ignorant.
Tell us how you really
Tell
feel.
us how you really feel.
I think our exes just came out because I literally just said the same thing. I appreciate it and I get it. Side tangent, side note, one of the things in my current job is there's a whole lot of focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I mean we have literally an entire department that is devoted to that in my organization. And it's really amazing to see about the different perspectives. And again, it's about realizing we are all one people for all that we are very different and everyone has a different perspective and you get so much more value of having those different perspectives coming to the table. And that's why we wanted to do this session with you, but also wanted to get your thoughts to those who are in older generations, because there is exactly that. At some point in time you start thinking you're too hidebound, you can't change, and that's absolutely not true. If you open up your perspective, you open up your worldview, it will absolutely make the world more inclusive, and it will actually make the world better and help us get to where we really need to actually go if we want to have a future and not go extinct as a species.
Yeah. Yes.
We know how you feel about the boomers. What would you say to the generation underneath you? What would you say to Gen Alpha?
If your parents did not know what they were in for and decided to make the internet your primary babysitter, then when you are old enough to form your own opinions, use that iPad of yours and actually get some critical thinking skills. You hear the term iPad kid a lot, and that's slowly becoming an epidemic. At some point when you get old enough to form your own opinions and everything like that, use the iPad that you have to actually form some critical thinking skills.
Gen X is latchkey kids. Gen Alpha is iPad kids.
As a parent, I think that there's absolutely nothing wrong with giving your kids information that is valuable to them in some way, shape, or form, but to do so with some discernment, to do so with some understanding that if I'm going to show this film to my kid, what do I need to think about in terms of what discussion might this bring up? What tools do I need to give my child to look at this and, make some sense of it and to give them the information that they will need, and to make sure that information is accurate.
When it comes to building on that topic, I'm just going to say this right here and now. Do not censor anything, and instead just explain to your child why that is either bad or good, so that way when they eventually find that pathway that you are trying to keep them from going on, because they're going to find it eventually. So instead of censoring that, because censorship is so selective and biased, instead of doing all that, just explain to your child why this is either bad or good.
Last question, and this is actually for Jen. What are you most proud of when you see Rosemary being herself?
She obviously has her opinions. I have definitely tried to practice what I preach with regards to parenting, and given her the information that I feel
better than my dad
needs. Shade. But I mean, honestly, what I'm so proud of her and what she's doing and how she's just being out in the world. And again, like I said earlier, I'm so proud of what I am seeing her generation do and what I'm seeing them start to really, like, God, they're coming into their own. You can vote now. She's old enough to vote. Many of her generation are now old enough to vote, and I'm going to shamelessly plug right now.
Please
go out and vote. If you are old enough to vote, especially in this coming election,
dear
please
God,
vote.
yes.
Please vote. And I'm not saying for who you should vote. I am saying to vote. Vote. If you don't use it or lose it. If you don't use it, you might lose it. So please go out and vote if you're capable of voting. Just please go out and please vote. I'm very proud of Rosemary and what her and her generation are accomplishing in this day and age.
1000% agree. And I don't think we've ever been in a situation where we thought we could potentially lose the ability to vote. But after what's happened in the last 4 or 5 years, I don't take anything off the table as rights that we consider a right being lost. So
Exactly.
absolutely vote. Make that choice, make it heard. And if you have that ability, step up and go and do and make the change. So step into city council, step into those things, become the leaders that are going to make that change. Because eventually all those old geezers in Congress are going to die out. I don't know when, hopefully soon, but eventually. Not soon enough, but eventually they will be gone.
Retired or whatnot.
I wanted to say thank you so much on behalf of me, on behalf of Damona, who I know was really upset that she couldn't join us today. And I wanted to say thank you, but thank you, Jen, for stepping in. It's greatly appreciated. And just, I really appreciate your perspective on all of this. I think it's something was really important for me to hear in my generation. And I think it's important for those who are out there in all generations to hear what that perspective is and to just think about it. Because like I said, every generation has its own perspective, and if we can learn from each other, all we're going to do is make that better. With that, I will say thanks for listening to the Queer Witch Project. If you enjoyed this topic, give us a like, follow, subscribe, give us a rating, or leave us a comment. Every little bit helps, I promise. If there is a topic you would like to know more about, or an episode topic you'd like to suggest, please contact us at thequeerwitchproject@gmail.com, or find us on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram with the handle @queerwitchproject. We upload every other week. And remember, queerness is a key to magic.
Be yourself
and love
rebelliously.
Bye. Welcome to the Queer Witch Project. Welcome.
I love it. I can't wait to show that to Demona.
Oh, she'll see it, no question. Exactly. This is why it's not as easy. It's not as easy as you think.
Yeah, no, that's not easy at all.
And this is why we have editing.
Where am I going with this? Honestly, that do no harm but take no shit message. The message, not message. Shish, 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 shish. What the actual hell? Oh my god.
It's harder than you
Anywho.
think. What? You mean all of those werewolf romance novels have gotten it wrong? I am shocked. So shocked. My mind is blown.
I had more flashbacks to Twilight, I hope you know.